What's up, 508 family? Welcome to another episode of the 508 podcast. My name is Rue, and honestly, it feels phenomenal to be here today. It has been a while, and I'm not alone. I have some of my favorite women with me. I'm going to start off with Natalia Fry,
the mom of the house,
fashion icon during the weekends
the
or
cutest
Friday nights.
Alive.
Stop.
And I also call her my mom, so.
I'm a mom to many, honestly.
How are you feeling?
I feel great. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like the last time I was on a podcast episode, I was very pregnant. So.
Not really. You were cute.
But I was like
here.
pretty far along in my pregnancy. I feel
That's
like my belly was pretty out there. And now my baby is going to be 9 months old. Like, that's so crazy.
The cutest little nugget.
He is.
Cutest.
My little Mr. Magoo. Yeah. We're doing good. Can't complain.
And I have Becca, formerly Mullen, now Moda.
Facts. This is my first debut with my new name. Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. On this podcast, we were just talking about this. We got some really good content for you guys today. Definitely a tough subject. We want to be able to share our stories and go there and hopefully impact some young women that are watching this podcast and men as well. I think men can
Totally.
get a lot out of what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
That's right. So if you guys haven't seen the men's episode, this is going to be I Left My Past Behind, ladies edition, but there's two other episodes that were like, they didn't mean to do like a men's edition, but that's how it turned out. So if you haven't seen that, I highly suggest you go back and watch those two episodes. They were super, super helpful. I thought it was awesome to get their perspective and just kind of seeing how our high-level leaders, where they came from and where they're at today.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that was really awesome. But we're here to be open and honest about our past, the things that we've overcome and struggled with, and we just want you guys to know that by no means is anything that we're saying we're saying you need to be here. We are not condemning anyone if by any chance what we talk about is something that you still struggle with or you're still working through, or if that's still your lifestyle, that's totally fine. We're just here to tell our stories, and at the end of the day, everyone has a different level of conviction. It depends on your relationship with God, so we are not here to judge anyone. So please stick with us. We have a lot to share, and we're super excited.
Yes.
I'm going to start off by reading a scripture. It is Romans 12:2, and it says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." Becca, I actually wanted to ask you if you could open up and share a little bit of your story.
Definitely. So in terms of kind of my testimony, where did I come from? How did I get here? How did I get on this podcast? And I think I've shared a little bit about it on previous podcasts, but I grew up in a Christian home, so I kind of, was born into church, kind of watched it. My family members were, leaders in the church. But I didn't really understand what it was to have a true relationship with God and what it was to be walking in my calling. Church was just kind of a thing that I did every Sunday, and it was almost like an obligation, and it was just part of my life. So I didn't, understand like the deeper meanings of it. So once I went to college, moved away, moved into school, I kind of stopped going to church, and, was living my life. I, definitely grew up with a lot of restrictions, which, looking back on it now, I can completely understand where my parents were coming from and kind of what they were trying to achieve with that. But I went to college and I was like, woo, freedom. Like, I'm going to live this up and enjoy my life, enjoy everything that I was missing, or so I thought I was missing. So I stopped going to church when I was in college. And I constantly felt empty and guilty. And it wasn't like a day-to-day thing, but I remember like on Sundays when I wouldn't go to church or something would happen, I would just have this like heavy feeling in my heart. And I knew it was emptiness and I knew it was guilt. So I kind of struggled with that all throughout college. eventually went through a really tough breakup, and that's what really kind of led me to thinking, okay, I need to find a church that I feel like I can be part of, that I can, meet people at, and, go back to church. So I joined a small group, and, kind of started from there. I came to Connect, joined a small group, started to kind of develop that relationship with God and, surround myself with the right people, got to kind of a better place, and ended up falling back to my previous mentality of, okay, things are good now, so I just want to have fun. I'm young. I just want to enjoy things. Yeah, everything's going good. So I kind of fell back to where I was before. And, fast forward some more time, I ended up meeting my now husband. But at the time, I had a lot of things that I needed to overcome to learn how to be in a relationship, as did he. And so we definitely went through some struggles in that relationship. And so at that moment, I realized, okay, I need to take this thing seriously. And I know for me, the biggest differentiating factor was once I started to lead. Once I was in a role where, I remember Devin and people in the 508 saying, Becca, I want you to lead this brand new team that we're launching from scratch, has never existed, but I want you to lead it. I was like, okay. Once I was leading and I was carrying weight, that's what I think, and I was starting to walk in that calling. That is kind of what kept me from ever going back to where, how I was before, and really helped, me work through a lot of the issues that I needed to overcome to kind of get to where I'm at. So, I think kind of classic example of someone that grew up in church, fell away, did all the wrong things, but then realized, okay, now I understand why it's so important to have a relationship with God and surrounding yourself with the right people, and what it looks like to actually leave your past behind, and what that difference makes in your life is kind of my story.
That's good.
Bex, while you were talking, I was thinking about you saying that you struggled a lot with feeling guilty and this heaviness. At what point do you feel like that started to lift, or that you got free from the guilt and, I'm sure, shame that was probably attached to that? At what point when you decided to recommit your life to Christ, did you start noticing that was transforming and you were getting healed from that?
Yeah. I would say, just from seeing, there's healing that comes from walking in your calling, and it's ugly in the beginning because you kind of have to face yourself. You have to face your pain and your hurt, and a lot of stuff that I had just kind of been burying and ignoring. I had to dig that up and work through that. And once I did that, once I kind of faced that and understood, okay, in order for me to properly lead, to properly, be in a relationship, to properly love my now husband, I need to work through these things. I need to, allow God to set me free from this. I need to forgive. I need to work through some heavy trauma. After I did that, after I made the decision, I'm going to put in the work, I think is where it really changed me and really made the difference for me. For sure. You
felt the heaviness being lifted and all that guilt, all that shame just kind of dissipating and being free from it. I think too, one of the things that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't do all of that processing and healing by yourself, correct?
No.
You invited trusted people into that process to help you with that.
Definitely, yeah. Because like I said, it can be a lot, and it's hard when there's pain there, there's hurt there, and you're conscious, you want to protect yourself, and it's I don't want to go through that, but slowly, I opened up to people around me, and thankfully was surrounded by people that loved me, that wanted to help me, and said, listen, Becca, you gotta work through this, you gotta address this. Whenever you're ready, we can work through this. I'm here for you, but this is what you gotta do. And they kind of encouraged me to do that, and obviously, walked me through the process as well.
I was going to add too, the Bible specifically tells us to confess our sins to one another so that we may be healed.
Yeah.
And that's not okay, everything you do is sinful or because you're trying to sin per se, but I think when we try to hide and pretend like these things that we've done that we're not so proud of, or these situations we've been in, when we try to hide those things, we're bearing it because we're ashamed of it. In a sense, it's well, no, I'm over it, but I just don't like, why would I talk about it if I'm over it? But that's exactly what you need to do. You need to be able to be open and honest with people, with trusted voices, mentors, our pastors, like in the small group, like you said. Those are the places and the people that you need to be in to get healed from these things that you think you're over, that you think you've overcome. But a lot of times we're just burying it, pretending like it didn't happen, thinking that we're far past it. But if you don't bring that to light, it eventually like starts to creep up on the surface, and you're like, wow, I thought I didn't have that issue anymore, but here I am. Or I didn't think I struggled with that anymore, but here I am doing it again. So that's
I think the first part of that verse that you were sharing, it talks about how we have to confess to God, and I think that's the step that people take, that they stop at. They just confess to God for forgiveness.
Hey,
and
God,
then they
my
feel
bad.
like, and then they
leave it there. Like, I don't have to tell anyone. I told God.
And he's forgiving. I'm covered. I'm good.
Yeah.
But then, like, there's no healing that takes place because you didn't confess to someone who you could trust that could help you heal through that process. So it's a two-step. It's a two-step thing. You have to confess to God for forgiveness, but then you confess to others for healing.
Yeah, and kind of what Rue alluded to in the beginning. It's like, we're here to tell you that it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter that you just messed up yesterday. It doesn't matter if, you've been, told myself I wasn't going to cry. It doesn't matter if you're in a broken relationship and you don't feel loved. It doesn't matter if you've been sexually assaulted. It doesn't matter if you've, done a horrible thing. God loves you, and there is redemption for you. There is grace for you. And we're sitting here today because we've realized that, and we want to help other women and other people get to that same place. It's kind of like why I'm so passionate about this ministry is, trust me, I've been there. I've gone through some crazy stuff. Like, I've worked through some crazy stuff. But I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that can benefit from that. Everyone can. Yeah. And so we really hope that that's kind of what you get out of today. Is like, we're not here by any sort of circumstance, or we just they never had any issues, or they never went through stuff. Like, there was a lot of work done.
Should have seen me like 5 years ago. It's rough. There's hope for you.
But one thing that I was going to mention on, and I think we talked about this, and I think is a good point to highlight. And we all kind of came up with our own taglines that we felt like really defined our view of what does it mean to leave your past behind. So for me, I thought, okay, you've left your past behind when you don't view Christianity or being in church as restrictive, but you see it as freedom and protection from God. And one thing that came to my mind, and it is usually the first thing that freaks women out when you talk about it, is the concept of modesty. And it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. It's all restrictions. We have to wear turtlenecks and
long
pants.
skirts.
That's not it. I don't need that in my life. That's pointless.
Or I should be free to wear whatever I want. And if other people have a problem with it, it's their problem, not mine.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It's two extremes.
Yeah. And I remember, when I was kind of going through that period of time, call it my past, I guess. I would get dressed up on the weekends and, do my hair for the club. Sorry, Mom.
I was right there with it.
And, there's this concept that you think hey, I'm going to make myself look really good because I want to attract attention tonight. I want guys to look at me and want me and talk to me. And that's going to make me feel wanted and feel powerful in a sense. And that's what, that's the right thing to do. And when you think modesty, you think, oh, that's a restriction. But as I kind of changed my perspective and I allowed God to really work in my heart, my view on that really changed. And I feel like even you guys can add to this, was, before I used to think, okay, this feeling of being wanted and noticed by other men or even other women, on social media or anything, it's such a lie. And in the reality, we end up falling prey to the idea that our beauty comes from just our appearance, or our beauty comes from, how many likes we get on social media, or who looks at us, or who compliments us.
True.
Or our power comes from our appearance.
Exactly. And that is not what God designed us to be. That's not how he built us. Our beauty comes from way more than just our appearance. And so what appears to be a restriction, where it's like, oh, you can't dress a certain way, the reality is that's actually protecting you from falling prey to that idea that, oh, okay, my beauty is tied to my appearance, or how I dress, or how I look. And in reality, it gives you true freedom, because you're set free from that idea that, oh, well, I have to wear a really low-cut shirt or really short shorts to feel beautiful. Like I said, God wants to protect us, and he wants to set us free. And this idea of modesty, if you dig deep into that, you can see that that's actually the case. Although it seems restrictive, it actually does bring protection and freedom.
Yeah, I would say it's even tougher in like today's day and age, because everyone is just rocking like booty shorts and a crop top. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I have crop tops, but it's just like, why? I guess it's like the reason behind it.
Yeah.
It's like, where are you going and why are you wearing that?
The intention behind what you're wearing.
Right. And it's not, like, are you trying to attract attention from someone who do you want looking at you? Where are you going? Instead of just like, okay, if it's a fashion thing, like, you go, girl, like, fashion icon right here,
I don't really rock. I don't really rock the crop tops since having
That's
children. So you won't catch me wearing one. I'm just putting it out there.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but I would say it's definitely tougher in today's day and age to balance that. Like, I'm just trying to wear what I like, or, like, even having people look at you and like guys looking at you, it's like, stop looking at me.
It's
like
uncomfortable. Yeah. It's like,
I just felt cute, so I'm gonna wear this.
And I'll say too, like, if you're unsure, you're like, oh, is this a force? Like, how many times have I've texted real like, is this a force?
Yeah.
If you're questioning it, it's a
Probably
force.
a force. It's like the mirror pic to your friend, like,
I'm like, do you think this is too
okay?
much? And usually Rue's like, yeah.
Too much shoulder.
A little too much shoulder. Maybe, get a longer, like, set of shorts. I'm like, you're right, Rue. You're right. Keep us in check. But, again, to be transparent, like, we go through the same thing. Like, we're women. It's hard in today's age with the fashion and stuff. But, it is a mindset thing and a mentality that changes, and I think is a change for the better.
Yeah, Nat, I actually wanted to hear a little bit from you. So we all did talk before this, and a lot of times we feel unqualified. Like, my story isn't really going to reach anyone. Like, I don't really have a story. My past is just this. Like, no one's really struggling with that. I think all of us were like, why were we asked to be on this podcast? So I did want to hear it from Nat. She has an amazing story. I think just you being the incredible wife and mom that you are, and how you got here. And, you may have not, dressed in crop tops like Becca and I did and gone to the club.
I'm a fossil according to every Gen Zer out there. So the crop tops weren't in when I was, at the age where I was going to the club and everything. Just wasn't the style at the time. Well, I was definitely the person in our group that was like, I don't really know why I'm a part of this podcast. I don't have a whole, like, my past is not anything like, traumatic. It's not anything like, I didn't acquire much baggage with my past. It wasn't anything that I felt like was like, that testimony that you hear and you're like, whoa, blown away by it, that God did something incredible. I do believe that God did something incredible in my life, but it wasn't like those like shocking type of testimonies. So I just felt kind of like silly. But the girls made a great point about just how, God will use anybody's story to touch somebody or reach many people. You never know. So we can never downplay what God's done in our life or what our past looks like or anything like that. But I grew up in the church as well. Like, I was born into a Christian household. Believer my whole life. I never went through a phase where I was like, I don't know if I believe in God, or I just don't believe in God. Like, I never went through a phase like that. I always believed in God. I always committed my life to the church. Even when I wasn't doing well in my faith, I still prioritized church. That was important to me. My parents were always very protective. I'm Brazilian, so we all know, like, Brazilian culture.
Something else.
Brazilian, like, religious parents can be really hardcore. My parents were not hardcore. They were very protective, but they were not, like, they didn't totally shelter us or anything. Like, drinking wasn't a taboo in my house, or secular music wasn't a taboo in my house. So we never grew up thinking, like, oh my gosh, like, alcohol, we want to, like, try it because it sounds so dangerous, or like wow, alcohol's so cool, I can't wait to drink it. Like, it was never one way or the other with me or my sister. So alcohol was like, well, whatever. So I never partied, like, growing up. I didn't party in high school. I literally didn't drink until I was 21.
Such a good girl.
I was a really good girl. I was not, like, I didn't have, like, a reputation. I was friends with everybody. I was just
the
like
true meaning of cool right there. That is cool. I don't know what society is telling you, but that is cool.
I don't know, and I don't know why I was like that. Like, I never smoked weed. I had, like, little bouts of anxiety in high school, so I think the thought of smoking weed gave me anxiety, thinking I would get really paranoid smoking weed, so I just didn't even bother. I didn't dress provocatively, not because I was against it, but more so just, like, I just never felt like I needed to. I had insecurities just like everyone. I still do, but I never struggled with low self-esteem, so I wasn't chasing after things that I felt like I needed to fulfill me. So I never had those struggles, but once I turned 21, I had just moved back from Florida. It was a very complicated time in my life. I decided, right before I moved to Florida, like, you know what? I'm done with people telling me how to live my life. My mom and dad don't know anything. I'm tired of living in their home. I'm just going to break free. If you're listening, I'm doing air quotes. I'm just going to break free and go find myself. Like the classic crap that people love to say.
Find myself.
Yes. Like, who are you looking for? Do you even know what you're looking for? Like, what does that mean?
Where did you lose it?
Where did you lose yourself? Okay? That's what I thought I needed to do. And so the root of my decision was definitely rebellion. And I moved down to Florida, and long story, I'll just share, like, literally a couple little things, which I think I've shared before in, like, a message on a 508 night. But I was, like, homeless temporarily. I had $0 to my name. It was, like, 2008, which was, I'm aging myself. It was 2008. Middle of the recession. I applied for a job at Walmart and couldn't get a job at Walmart. That's how bad it was.
Really?
It was really bad.
Not even Target. McDonald's, nobody was hiring. I'm not even exaggerating.
Wow.
I could not get a job. So I had no money to my name. Girls at my school thought I had an eating disorder because they never saw me eating, because I didn't have money for food.
Oh my God.
It was so bad. And I had, like, health problems because of it. It was a mess. My life was a mess. I didn't even last a full year in Florida. It was so bad. But when I finally came to my senses and moved up here, I had found out what I wanted to pursue for my career, but I had no purpose for my life. And I think that's where I really saw the hand of God, like what he did to mold me. He gave me purpose. I uncovered my purpose, and it really wasn't until I started attending Connect. I'm not saying this like, hey, if you come to our church, like, your life is, I do believe that your life is going to change. But it's not because it's the name of the church or the location of the church. I think it's really just about getting in community with the right people.
That's true.
And that's what changed my life. Like, I surrounded myself with people who really helped me uncover what my purpose was. I tell people all the time, whenever we talk about, Devin and I share our story, I always say, like, I never in a million years thought I would ever marry a pastor. I never saw myself ever public speaking. Doing something like this I could never even imagine something like that. And here I am. I'm talking to amazing leaders. I'm sharing my testimony. I'm talking to, like, mentoring girls with my husband and mentoring other leaders and raising children myself, like, just amazing, absolutely amazing. But I think it was finding purpose is where I really began to uncover like who I truly was. And I went through a really, when I turned 21, I went through a really rough patch of just partying all the time. It was like, oh, this isn't prohibited because you're allowed to go into these places and you're allowed to buy alcohol and you're allowed to whatever. So I just started doing that, and then what turned into an occasional thing became like a more regular thing, and then a weekly thing, and then I just never felt like I was ever happy unless I was going out and drinking and getting trashed. Literally, even when I started coming to Connect like a decade ago, I still was in that lifestyle. So I found that by partying all the time, I was just like not facing the fact that I didn't know who I was or what I wanted with my life or what God wanted for my life. And it wasn't until I stopped, like I literally had to just stop doing all of that and completely shift my focus to, okay, I'm going to, like Becca was saying, like I'm going to confront the things that I've been kind of just suppressing. You know, I've been ignoring these things and just pretending like these things don't exist, but I have to face it and I have to grow up. I have to uncover what it is that God has for me so that I can actually feel fulfilled in my life. And I can honestly and genuinely say that that's where I'm at now. Like I'm walking in the will of God for my life, and I know that he still has so much more in store for me. So
Such an
That's
awesome
amazing.
story, Nat. It's crazy when you say that you'd never had like $1 to your. I like look at you, and Nat is the most put together person. You like, she's so handy. If you know Nat, like this girl,
She's the handy woman of the house.
she's so handy, and I just feel like you have it together. And to hear your story, I'm like, that's insane to me.
oh my gosh, if you knew me 15 years ago, you would be like, this
I would've
girl
loved
is
it.
a hot mess.
I
Like,
would've loved it.
no, I was incredibly immature. I had no responsibility. I mean, I was that girl that you'd be like, something bad is always happening to that girl. Like she's
Oh my
like
gosh.
a walking bad luck. You know, like her car's always breaking down.
Oh
her
my
card is
gosh.
always declining when she's checking
It's
out.
shocking to me. That's shocking to me.
It was that. I just never had my life put together. And you were talking about how, like, you know, taking on the role of leadership helped you to grow.
Shape up.
That, to me, I think is huge. Like, Devin and I
Hold you
always say,
accountable.
like, people will mature the more responsibility they have.
100%.
The moment you start taking on responsibility for things, taking ownership of things,
and
it's like
people
that.
are counting on you for stuff, you're like, well, I can't stop coming to church. Like, I have this whole team that's counting on me, or I said I was going to do this. Like, that
Yeah.
really makes a difference.
Totally.
I would say like it'll almost like make you face the things that you have to, because when this weight's on your shoulders, if your foundation isn't there, like if you're not healthy on the inside, that's going to
You're
come
gonna-
out
yeah.
real
You're
quick.
gonna
Real
crumble.
quick.
Because in leadership, in the church specifically, like you're in charge of people and their souls and their care, and you can't do that if you're not healthy on your own. Like that will come out so fast. So it's like a reality check. And at the end of the day, I think we want to be the best version of ourselves for other people too.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a healthy weight is what we like to call it.
Definitely.
If there's such a thing.
And Rue, I want to hear your story too, but before we get to that, we didn't even mention this, but Rue recently got engaged. Rue has been in like every podcast episode, and I remember the last one, Mike made a comment. He's like, Rue, you're like not engaged or anything,
Yeah,
right?
anything
and
in
she's
your
like,
life,
no.
I'm like, I
and
get
I
it.
knew in my head, I was like, she's about to get engaged in like precisely 3 weeks, but it's fine. So Rue is the newest bride of the 508, and we're so excited for her.
We love it.
And you have the most incredible story, Rue, and honestly, it was so inspiring to me, like even to watch it and played a role in like my growth as well. Like you got to share your story.
Thanks. Wait, pause. Quick pause. Nat, your tagline. We need to do this.
Facts. You didn't say
Okay,
the
so
tagline.
Becca, your tagline was...
I already said it.
Repeat it again.
What was my tagline? You've left your past behind when you realize that being in church or being a Christian isn't restrictive, but it leads to freedom and protection.
So my tagline was, you left your past behind when your life produces fruit and not dead branches. I've preached about this before at the 508. Actually, I think the last time I spoke at the 508, my message, God's Plan, I talked about how in our life we go through seasons and we go through cycles. And when we go through seasons, there's a start and an end time with a season. And even if things are not going great in our life, but we're in the will of God and we're walking out in our purpose, we do see fruit.
So good.
But when we're in a cycle and it's like one thing after another is not working out, if you're in that position and you're listening to this and you're like, why can't my life just come together? It's like something happens and then I think things are going to change, but then it goes right back to the crap all over again. It just never changes. Then you're in a cycle, and what you're not seeing is fruit. What you're seeing are dead branches, and dead branches can't produce good fruit, or any fruit. So that was one thing that I learned with my past, and all my experiences were that if I wasn't walking in the will of God for my life, my life was never going to get better. I was never going to feel fulfilled. I was never going to get better in every sense of that word. And then the moment I actually surrendered my life to Christ and what he wanted for me, it was like all these amazing things. Like you were saying, I just seem so well put together. But honestly,
Is that God?
It's God. It's not me. I was like
plan.
the bad luck girl. Like people were like, there's something wrong with that girl.
Stay away from her.
Stay away from her.
I love that.
And I think that was the big difference for me.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I fall like right in the middle of you two. Like I did grow up in a Christian household. It was something that I enjoyed doing for a while, but then I turned like 14, and I've probably said this a million times, but I was going to a Brazilian church and I just wasn't getting what I needed at the time. I was like a teenager, and I don't know, like living in America as a Brazilian, you start, at one point, English becomes your primary language, and I'm like sitting there listening to this pastor speaking for like 4.5 hours on end, literally Brazilian church.
Yelling.
And I'm like, God, I'm not getting anything out of this. So I told my mom I didn't want to go anymore, and I think my parents were upset about it at first, but it was like, we don't want to force this on her. But God was literally always so funny. I was constantly surrounded by people that had a faith. Like, Becca and I became really good friends in like 10th grade, and her mom would make sure to be like, you want to come to church with us this Sunday? Do you want to come to church with us Sunday? And I would like avoid it as much as I could. I had this other friend, Marissa, and like I would go to Christian like weekend camps with her. I always had some of my friends. Steph, like her dad was always in church and he would talk about it with us. So like I was constantly surrounded by people. My family in Florida, my cousins are like youth pastors. So literally like it was everywhere I looked, there was Christianity there. And it wasn't like a bad thing. Like it was familiar to me. I was just trying to run. And a lot of it I think was just facing because I was trying to run away from my own issues. I started partying in college. Well, late high school, senior year, don't judge me. And then college, I would literally go visit Becca every other weekend, and we would hit the clubs.
Tear it up in Boston. Don't listen to us.
Tear it up.
We've all been there.
And it was just like the binge drinking, and it was just kind of like, it was what we just wanted to do. It's what we knew. It was fun at the time. You didn't necessarily have to face certain things. You just knew every weekend you were going to go out, you were going to have fun with the girls, we were going to go to a different school, we were going to go out. Like, there was always something. Yes, we're going to look cute or whatever. So that was like a routine. I first came to the 508. It wasn't Connect. Honestly, it was because of my brother. He had always wanted to check it out. So we came, I think Becca came, you came to that first night. And ever since then, I was like, this place feels right. So I checked out a Sunday service. I started to get plugged in, more like attending things. I wasn't leading or serving for a little while. And then when I finally became a member of Connect, that's when I started serving. At that point, though, I wasn't in community like I am now. So there wasn't really much weight to what I was doing, which we absolutely welcome. Like, come to church and you will start to see change. You will start to want to get more involved. You will start to want to carry more weight. But at that point, I was still half in, half out. I was serving on Sunday. I wasn't attending church, though. I was in a relationship, like a secular relationship that wasn't healthy at all. And it took that, that relationship had to end, and that's when I made a decision. I was like, you know what? I know for a fact I don't want to just marry any man. I know for a fact that this life isn't fulfilling, like drinking every weekend, spending all that money on that stuff, like this just isn't doing it for me anymore. So I remember I came to a 508 event, and that same night I like was looking for any way to get involved, and then I just started whatever needed help, whatever gap there was, I was like, I'm jumping in, I'm helping here. I remember it had to be God. Like Pastor Devin sent me a message on Facebook and was like, you've been on my mind, I just wanted to check in and see how you were doing. And I was like, honestly, I'm not great, but I feel like I'm on the right path. And I was like, I want to serve. And I didn't really know what that meant. And he was like, maybe you should just attend. I was like, no, I get that, but I want to serve. And he was like, I mean, okay. And I was like, plus I'm Brazilian. We're really good at cleaning. We're pretty organized. So I think you could use someone like me. And that was 3 years ago. And my life has been like totally different since. And it has not been easy. I had to work through so many things. Like I had to face a lot of stuff that I had hidden, a lot of shame from my past, even like unforgiveness from like family stuff. So there was a lot that I had to grow through. And then with that leadership, there has been more weight, which is, again, it's like, well, I'm still working through that. So like, let me get rid of that so I can better lead someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're here too. I think even just our stories and what we've been through, I really hope that there's someone out there listening that's like, that's me right now. You can literally be here no matter what your past looks like, no matter what you're currently living looks like. You're literally a new creation in Christ. So it literally does not matter what you've done. The worst thing you've done can be redeemed, and you can have anything you want. Like the things God can do, the way he can restore your life is like unreal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people like are familiar with this verse, but because it's quoted so much, but Jeremiah 29:11 literally is God's promise, you know, that he has plans for you to prosper you, not to harm you, plans for hope and a future. So God wants the very best for you. He wants to bless you. He wants to love on you. He wants to like give you more than we could ever ask or imagine, but you have to take that step. It comes from you. Like he's not going to force, you know, he wants to be like, here, I have this gift for you and it's yours. Like I'm just waiting for you to take it from my hands. And a lot of times we are like too scared to see what that is, so we just don't accept it, or we'll push it away, or we'll be like, someone else deserves this present. But really has it specifically just for you. And we don't uncover that unless we pursue him for that.
That's so good.
Christian and I were speaking at CY, I think it was last week now, and we kind of broke down baggage. And one of the things that we had was a lot of people struggle to want to let go of their past and release some of their baggage because they have no idea what they'll look like or who they'll be without it. And I promise you, you are exactly who you and who God made you to be without all that baggage. That baggage comes from the world, it comes from trauma, it comes from broken relationships, it comes from hurt and just people. So that's not you. Like God literally has the most perfect plan for you, and all you have to do is say, hey, like, I'm here, I'm broken, I'm hurt, this is me, this is my past, but I want that relationship with you. My tagline. You know you left your past behind when you realize that your past is what qualifies you to lead others. So your brokenness, your pain, everything that you've been through is you're here exactly because God brought you here. So the best thing I can say is like, use your pain, your past for like someone else's purpose, like for the better of someone else. God certainly didn't intend for you to be hurt or intend for you to like experience the bad things that you've experienced, but he can use that, and he will use that. That's like why we're here. Like he's using our stories, and he wants to use yours.
And I think to wrap up this podcast, I think it'll be good for us to just kind of do a fire, whatever you call it, quick one-liners. Like, what are some
3 minutes of fire
actionable things that you guys did as you were going through this transition? Like, okay, as you were kind of leaving your past behind and working through those things, what are some things that you did that helped you just work through that season?
I think for me, it was humbling myself. I think a lot of times we feel uncomfortable being honest and transparent about what we're going through, but we're also prideful about, like, I don't need anybody's help, or I can figure this out on my own, or even that lie that I was thinking, like, no, my testimony is, nothing. Like, who's going to even want to listen to what I have to say? And I think we let ourselves get in the way of ourselves. And there's no humility there. So if you're not humble, you're not teachable. How can you correct something that you're not even willing to listen to? So I think for me, that was probably the biggest thing I had to learn, was to just, you got to let go of that pride. You got to be humble, and through your humility, you will be teachable. And that's the only way that I learned, so that I wouldn't keep repeating the same mistakes I was making.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to sound funny, but I stopped swearing. You guys would not believe the things that would come out of my mouth. Like, I was something else. And bad. Even like when I first started coming to church, like, I would still drop, literally bad words, okay? And like, people would look at me like, are you good? Like, did you just really say that? So it's funny because now I'm like super sensitive to it. Like, if somebody swears, it's like,
you're like,
it almost like burns my ear. Like,
why did you say that?
Again, I am not shaming anyone that swears, because that was me. Like, I used to, it was bad. So that was just like a practical thing. People watch the way you speak. So especially if I'm leading others, I don't want others swearing around me. It's not cute. Yeah. So that was one thing I stopped doing. That was swearing.
Can I add to that? I will never forget Pastor Emmy was preaching one time, and he was talking about how he struggled with that. Like, at some point in his past, he struggled with like foul language and stuff. And at one point he was like, you know what? It just makes me sound stupid. Like, I sound like I don't have like any other words in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm using the same like swear words to describe everything, he's like, it just doesn't sound creative. It doesn't sound smart. It just makes me sound like I'm limited in my intelligence. Yeah. So he dropped it just for the sake of like, I don't want to sound like an idiot.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's like, I think to me, I was like, yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like, I don't want to sound like a doofus either.
And people listen to you because, so I started saying what the flip, okay? I replaced flip. I just throw flip around, and I remember using it at work. And then I had coworkers that would, when we would like Skype, and now it's Teams, but they would use flip. So I like rubbed off on other people and stopped them from like actually swearing. So that, it was funny, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I had the same thing. I was swearing too, but one thing that I did that actually helped me with the swearing as well. But when I was kind of going through this period of time, I was in a place where I really wanted God to come in and just redeem the relationship that I was in and kind of give us a fresh start. And I really wanted him to purify my heart and purify my mind. So one actionable thing that I did was I deleted all explicit music off of my phone. Like, I would listen to some foul music. Like,
strictly country now.
Bad. Like, strictly
country and worship.
Music nowadays, like, if you're in a relationship and you're struggling to stay pure, stop listening to Chris Brown, like baby making music. Like, that doesn't help. So I deleted all of the explicit music on my phone that had just like swears and was just like insanely explicit. That was like one practical thing that I did. And it also helped with swearing, because most explicit music has swears in it. So that,
you get carried away with the rapping, and all of a sudden you're like,
so that helped clear my vocabulary. That's one kind of practical thing. And then another thing that was really big for me that, again, just helped me dig up that baggage and that stuff that I was hiding. I always hid behind this facade that I was like, I'm not emotional. Like, I'm a strong, independent woman.
I don't cry.
I don't cry. Now Devin's like, Becca, keep it together for 1 second. I cry all the time.
He predicted that you were going to cry tonight.
Oh, really? It's fine. Is let people in. Like, share your story. You don't have to do it all at once. If it takes you a long time, that's okay. But find a trusted mentor or find a trusted spiritual leader and talk about your story. Talk about what you've been through. Share that. Even if it's like a tiny hint of it, I'm telling you, there's freedom in that. There's healing in that. And it's not going to happen unless you tell someone. You can't keep that bottled up. So that was something that I did. And that helped me uncover so much that I didn't even realize was there. But it made a tremendous difference in my life. So
absolutely.
That's my recommendation.
And honestly, like if you're listening to this, watching this, and you're feeling like, wow, I really feel like I need to talk to someone, but you don't really know who to turn to, I mean, please reach out to us. I'm sure they'll include our social media handles on there, or like send a message, like comment on this, like, hey, someone reach out to me. Whatever it is, but don't keep it to yourself. Don't try to bottle it all in. We're here for you. So many of our other leaders are here for you. We want to help. This is what this is for. And we hope that this episode helped someone out there, or if you're thinking of someone while you're listening to this or watching this, please share it with them. We would love for this to be as impactful as possible. But I just want to thank you for listening and tuning in. I want to thank the girls for doing this with me, that we're all able to join in together. But don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Share it, save it, whatever you can do. Take notes, listen to it again. I mean, this will be around, so just make sure that you take something out of it. Share it with your friends, and we can't wait to have you join us for our next episode.
And don't forget that here at the 508, we don't fear the future, we pioneer it. We'll see you guys next time.
Boom! Crushed it. Wow.
I almost forgot what it was, and I'm like,
That's a wrap.
You're like, oh, I'm going to fumble it.
I'm
I'm going to fumble it right in the
so
middle.
ready. Say fear the future here.